Okay, hello everyone. George Webb here in Maryland, along with Addy.
Good afternoon, George.
Hey Addy. So we had a great show this morning on McDuff, McDuff_2020 channel. That was a lot of folks on that.
It was an honor to be a part of McDuff channel for the first time. So that was great, and had quite the viewing, as you said, quite the live viewing. So we appreciate the support on this Saturday.
Big audience. So we'll get right to the news. Obviously, Nashville. It looks like an information operation, sort of a diversion that you would do if you wanted to go get a whole bunch of servers from the NSA or something like that. It has all those kind of markings. I'm not saying that's what happened, but when you give everybody a warning to clear a building, it seems like a building clearing operation. Most terrorists don't give warnings to clear a building. You would want to clear the building if you were going to clear the people out so that you could get the servers out, or at least see what occurred. And we thought, hey, why not also throw in some white supremacy?
Yeah, and that's making the rounds right now on Twitter by by virtue of a guy named Sam Hyde. His picture's going all over Twitter, and this is something we kind of actually spoke about this morning briefly. It was the white supremacist angle that I believe John mentioned, and how that could be used as a tactic to fuel the left or fuel other radicals as well.
And also just make anyone talking about the election somehow mix them in with white supremacy, right? Just all talk about the election and the election fraud, even though Trump's tweeting about it today, is just now somehow white supremacist. And the guy I dealt with, a guy named Deep Uranium, he was talking to me about his days as a CIA sort of contractor in the Stan countries, and talking about CIA bases and all this sort of thing. He actually had recruited people in West Virginia, the West Virginia militia, to try to blow up the headquarters of the FBI. He was given plans to give to these people. He encouraged them to take bomb making classes. He paid for their courses. All this was testified to by this gentleman, who is Marshall Oakey Richards, that I found out later was an FBI informant on Jason's show, Crowdsource the Truth. So all the person he put in jail was through this guy. So I certainly now think I was being set up before I was getting to the whistleblowers in Ohio, but it reminded me so much that I'm not saying Marshall's involved with this Samuel Hyde, but you get a website. If you look at right now, there's Tennessee State Militia, that you can go to the website and put your name in and recruit and be a part of the militia. Tennessee's a volunteer state, goes all the way back to the War of 1812 with volunteers, militia. And then you could be coaxed and entrapped all along the way, breadcrumbed all along the way for years to do something stupid like this bombing.
The power outages are continuing as well, which leads me to believe that this is being done in conjunction with another operation, because what you essentially have is a black hole where surveillance is gone, 9/11 communications are cut, and George's big idea was the server grab. That's definitely a very strong possibility.
Georgia also is dark right now. Northern Georgia, this area covered northern Georgia, right?
And it could be a wide array of operations too. Maybe a server grab, maybe a whacking or two, or something else as well. Moving people in and out of areas. All these are possibilities as well. And the longer the time length goes of this blackout, the more opportunity is to get these black operations done. And what better time than Christmas, when everybody's not only watching the TV, but they're not on the streets. They're at home.
Right.
So it's really strategic timing in terms of that aspect, picking Christmas Day, which is perhaps the most celebrated American holiday, I would say.
Yeah, and it sucks up all the oxygen in the room for Trump, because Trump can't talk about the election anymore. He can't.
It makes him look like a selfish prick if he does, right?
Right.
So that's another aspect to this operation as well.
Yeah, and Trump was going to, people were going to talk about how Trump's $2,000 payout got defeated in the House of Representatives. They didn't want that. Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok and all the gang, they wanted to talk about white supremacy. So it changes. These bombings have a way of changing the national conversation. The other thing we did talk about this was Raffensperger's connection to China. You may have seen Patrick Byrne making the rounds talking about how there's this company in China that was communicating to folks at the Secretary of State's office the night of the election. Brad Raffensperger is the Secretary of State. A relative of his, distant relative, I believe, Ron Raffensperger, is the CTO of Huawei, a Chinese company that's been sanctioned for stealing secrets. Also, they've been their phones have been banned for anybody in the DoD because of a back door that was put in the phones. And Patrick Burns says there was a company, in China. Guangdong, I believe, is the city. I know I'm not pronouncing it right, that he's in. So it'd be interesting to see if there was traffic through this trunk line going out to, I believe the line goes terrestrially out to San Francisco, and then out through the Pacific Ocean through a subterranean cable. It would be interesting to see if that, this server grab might be to quell that election traffic that was happening that evening.
Yeah, and related to this Nashville bombing operation as well, we're kind of on standby here a little bit with what we can release, but one of our sources was gravely threatened last night on Christmas Day as well, like life-threatening.
We could say shots fired.
Shots fired type of threat,
Yeah.
And
into the house. So
yeah,
I mean,
yep.
So,
and
yeah.
So this was, this is coordinated as well. They chose Christmas Day for those reasons that we spoke about as well. So I don't think that's a coincidence. There's feathers being ruffled, nerves being pinched, maybe is another way to put it, and this is all indicative of that. So these people are not they're not playing around. They are willing to use deadly force if necessary to get their message across.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, McCabe maybe not so much. The bombings certainly seem to follow him every 4 years in his career. Like I said this morning, McCabe is the guy recruiting PTEC. These are the Pakistani intelligence guys that are all around the World Trade Center before that blows up. And remember, the buildings were pre-wired. Remember, Building 7 was pre-wired. PTEC was the Pakistani-Israeli company that had all these intelligence people in and around the World Trade Center. And so you wonder who wires the buildings, how does that happen? What kind of communications, encrypted communications do they use? I'm not saying Andy McCabe and Bob Mueller got them visas and got them in, but if you go into the files, you folks at the NSA, you're going to see how closely associated Wilmer Hale was to bringing those PTEC people into the country, and how closely associated Andy McCabe was with the mosques that those people were associated with as a rinse or as a pass-through. And also the 93 bombing. Before that, the FBI was involved in. Again, they said it was not going to be a real live detonation, but it turned out that the FBI went ahead with the detonation. So,
yeah, and related to that Building 7 bombing, if people want to check out my talk with Richard Gage, we spoke about that as well in the thermate connection. But there's these invisible workers, or invisible guys, as I call them sometimes, like firefighters, policemen, first responders, construction workers. These people blend in to the public, right? You walk past them, you don't really think twice. And they're already lauding. I saw a few police officers for saving people's lives yesterday in the Nashville explosion. Whether that's true or not, it seems like they're already picking their heroes, and it seems like they've already picked the villain as well.
Yeah, the scripting is already in play.
These intelligence sources we have are getting on these people's radar, and we are going to try to identify the car. I'm going to send some of the documentation over to Paul, who worked on cars.
We're going to post the video of the car.
Yep.
We have a video of the car shooting into the house.
Yeah, you can see the gunshots fired as well. So, just all part of the public intelligence process.
Yeah, and you spent 2 weeks with the family, so you've spent a lot of time with the family. So yeah, so this is something that where Addy has put a lot of time into, and I think he's on a very hot lead here. All right, Addy Eds, thank you very much from Maryland. We'll post that stuff later tonight.
Yes, sir. Stay frosty, folks.
All right, thanks everybody from Maryland.